Hey YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. As promised, I do have an update on the story of my neighbors who already called the police on us. So the plot thickens, and to tell the end of the story, I will be bringing in two new characters, giving them code names so that I can at least have a way to refer to them into this story. They are two elderly women, and we'll call one Mrs. Crumplebottom, and we'll call the other one Miss Milanese. Now, Mrs. Crumplebottom, I think every Italian condo unit has one, is one of those old ladies that if you have her, you don't need a security system because she is always watching, she is always there. When I would come to the house before the renovation started and before we moved in, every single time I would come, she would be there. Didn't matter what time of the day, didn't matter what season, Mrs. Crumplebottom was there to be looking. Always putting out her laundry, always. But comunque, she was there. And the reason why I'm calling her Mrs. Crumplebottom is because she's not exactly pleasant. I don't think I've ever seen her smile. And in the beginning, when I would say hello to her, at first she didn't even acknowledge me, and she didn't even say hello back. And I mean, this is actually normal. That's not even surprising to me. And it wasn't until after she realized that I bought the house and she would be seeing me a lot more that now she begrudgingly sometimes says buongiorno or salve back, but never with a smile. I've never seen her smile. So that's Mrs. Crumplebottom. And honestly, if anybody was gonna call the police in this story, I would have expected it to have been Mrs. Crumplebottom. So that's another way to know that the original neighbors exaggerated. So aside from Mrs. Crumplebottom, there is also her friend, Miss Milanese, which Miss Milanese is just a typical old Milanese old woman. She's a little bit nicer, I guess. And another thing to add about Miss Milanese is that she's like the head of the condo owners associations. Like when we have meetings for the condo owners, she's like the head of the condo owners and the person that, reports to the ones that manage our house, and she's like the reference. Just to give you an idea of the kind of people they are. So that is Miss Milanese, and her and Mrs. Crumplebottom are like this with regards to the apartment. And as I had mentioned in the last video, I've come to know these people either through passing or either when they asked me about the protective rugs on the floors and when they would be taken away, and relayed the information to them, and that's it. So picking up right where we left off, I was really upset about my neighbors calling the police on my friend. Not so much because they called the police, because I can understand, people can be scared and, want to be precautious. I get that. It was just the different elements to it. It's the fact that I really don't think that if my friend was a white supermodel as opposed to a black supermodel, they would have gotten as scared as they did. I couldn't understand why they came and did the investigation themselves if they were really that scared. And like I said, they saw me, we made eye contact, and instead of addressing me and asking me if I was okay, if I saw something, how was I doing, and talking to me, they basically just looked into my house, looked at me and my friend that they thought was a robber, and called the police. It was just a whole situation that didn't make sense, and it made me irritated. Along with, if you guys saw part one, the missing rugs. I was very agitated at the end of my last video, and I was ready to confront them. So what I did was I went and I tried to get a hold of them. I knocked on their door and they were never home. And so I didn't stop there. What I did was I told all my other neighbors what happened. First I told my next door neighbors, who are we'll say that we're the mixed race couple in the condo and they're the gay couple in the condo. So, being from two marginalized communities, I just expected us to get along. And we do get along so far. And so they had come and introduced themselves to us, and we know them. And so they were the first people that I knocked on their door, and I was like, hey, do you guys know who these people are? Because they called the police on us. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah. And I told them the whole story. And they also thought that it was bit crazy and that I should talk to them because, you know, we can't have this bad blood in the condo. There's not enough of us. So I already told them about it. One of the reasons why I was getting really anxious about the rug is because of punto. Like I said, I have these two older women that are little, you gotta be careful with how you handle these older Italian ladies because you never know how it's gonna go, that had already brought the rugs to my attention before. And so now that I saw it like ripped up and pulled aside, and like the rugs were taped to the floor with scotch, and even the way they ripped it up, they had left like scotch adhesive on the floor. And I was just so worried that one of those two little old ladies was either going to see the rug crumpled up there or see the scotch on the floor and already start complaining about me and making an issue about me. Now, as I said initially, given the circumstances, given the context, my first thought was, okay, whoa, those two people that called the cops on us decided to go rip up the rug, because I didn't think that it could be any of the people that I had already talked to about the rugs, which was pretty much everybody in the condo. So I'd already spoken to my next door neighbors, and I was going out and I heard La Signora Milanese talking to the guy that cleans the condo, and she was like, and yeah, there's scotch residue. And I was like, oh my God, she's already complaining. Oh my God. And so then I opened the door and she comes out and she is like, ma ciao, and like smiling and greets me, which is not like, she says hi to me sometimes when she feels like it, but she's never like, you know, actually nice to me. So that was like the first thing where I was like, okay. And I was like, you know what, let me take this chance just, you know, let her know that I didn't rip up the rugs and, you know, tell her what's going on. I want everybody to know what's going on because I want everybody to obviously be on my side of it. I don't want people I don't want them to hate me. So yeah, I said, you know, do you know who our neighbors are? The one that live next to you? Because I'm kind of looking for them. I want to talk to them about something that happened. And she was like, oh, well, you can just try and knock. And I was like, well, I already tried to knock twice and either they weren't home or they didn't open the door. And she was like, oh, but what happened? And I was like, so I told her, and she was so funny because she's like, these old ladies. Like they're all different obviously, but then they all end up acting the same. And she's like, oh yes, allora era per quello, okay, yes, last night. And then she proceeds to tell me, you know, about her nightly routine, giving me all this like extra information that I really didn't need. And she's like, and there I was, I had just gotten out of the shower, I had put on my underwear, and I heard there were people speaking outside of my door. And so, taken by the curiosity, I went to look and I saw the police officer. So as I should have known, Miss Milanese was already, all the old ladies were already less than 24 hours aware of the situation. And so she's like, yeah, she's like, oh, they called the police on you. And I was like, well, not me technically, but my friend. And she's like, oh my gosh. And I was just like, all right, well, Miss Milanese is definitely in a nice mood today. And I was like, and so yeah, and I don't know if it was them or not, but after this happened, somebody also came and ripped up the rugs in front of your house. And there's even scotch left on the floor. And I just want you guys to know, like, it wasn't me. I saw it like that. And as you can see, I ended up taking away all the other rugs. And she's like, oh no, guarda, sono stata io. And she proceeded to tell me how Mrs. Crumplebottom, and she did continue to say that it was Mrs. Crumplebottom, the mastermind behind it. They saw that, I guess, a piece of the rug was no longer attached to the floor. Honestly, I pass by the rug every day. I never noticed this, but of course, the two little old ladies, I guess, noticed a piece of the rug sticking up, and so they took it upon themselves to work together to rip up the rug. Them two. I should have known. So yeah, I was getting all mad at the other neighbors, and it wasn't actually their fault. But you know, all is well that ends well, because at least this gave me a chance to, like I said, get a bit closer with my next door neighbors who I knew we would get along with anyways, and also get to know Mrs. Milanese, which is definitely the kind of person in the condo that you need to have on your side and you need to have like you. So, you know, I created a little bit of small chat with her, and I was just like, I did this thing that Italians call like being paraculo, and I was just like, yeah, and you know, I called them to take away the rugs, but you know how it is, you ask for a small thing, and in questo periodo storico, it takes so long, and she's like, oh, sì, quando hai da fare con la gente, sì, so. It's just like, I'm just doing what I have to do to survive, guys. So at the end of the conversation, she said, I have such beautiful eyes. And I said, grazie. And then I went on my way. But just because the neighbors weren't the ones that ripped up the rugs didn't mean that I was going to let this all go. I still had to talk to them about calling the police on me. You can't just call police every time you see random black people in our condo, because since half of my friends are random black people, you're going to see them a lot. So I was still completely intent and ready to confront these people. So at the end of the day, when I came back home from doing my errands, there was Enrico at home, and I was like, and I told Enrico that it wasn't the two neighbors to rip up the rug, and he was just so pleased about that because he was saying it from the very beginning. He's like, what if it wasn't them? And I was like, who else could it be? It couldn't be the Signora Milanese. And she was like, well, you never know. It could have been anyone. I was like, no, it was them. They did it because they hate me. And so Enrico was just like, I told you so, that it wasn't them. But I said, no, Enrico, but we're still going to go over there and we're still going to say something. And he's just like, oh my God. Because Enrico, as you guys all know, if you've been longtime followers of this channel, is quite shy. And anyways, he doesn't like confrontation. He is Italian. He's also a Libra. He's not the type of person that's going to knock on somebody's door and say, hey, don't call the cops on me again, please. But I am, rather than let all of these question marks be in the air, I'd rather just have a conversation with us without the police in the vicinity, because we didn't obviously get to speak when the police were there. Now that we've all slept and had time to think about it, I just want to have a conversation. So I looked and I saw that the light was on at their door, and I was like, now's our chance, Enrico, let's go, we're gonna go. And he's like, oh my God, if you start yelling, I'm gonna walk away. And I was just like, I'm not gonna start yelling, come on. And so we went and I knocked on the door, and then this guy, it was the guy from the other night, but of course when you open the door at home, because you get a knock unexpected, you're in your most vulnerable form, in your pajamas essentially. And he just opened the door and he was like, you could tell that he was uncomfortable, and I feel like the mixture that I saw on his face was a mixture of uncomfortable, embarrassed, maybe even scared, because I don't know, maybe I am intimidating. And it was in that instant that I saw the look on his face that I decided that I wasn't going to drag him for calling the police just because he saw a black person. I decided in that instant to say, all right, hi, I just wanted to come by again and have a little, just have a little exchange, because the other night when there was the police, we couldn't really do it, but I just wanted to say, I'm Tia and this is Enrico, and we recently bought, emphasis on the bought, the apartment down the hall, and we've been inviting our friends over, and I gave terrible instructions to my friend, and so really sorry that happened. But really, I just introduced ourselves and said, we're there, we're humans, I won't bite you. And so he was like, yeah, no worries, honestly, it was mostly for you guys and your sake. Okay, but yeah, I'm X, and my sister, who's his sister in the end, is Y. And honestly, looking back now, I think that they're probably just some young fuorisede students, definitely not Milanese. They had Southern accents, so they're probably here studying in Milan and, just trying to get by. And so, I still believe that there were some prejudice in that call. I still believe it was exaggerated. I still believe that there were things behind it, but I'm happy that it ended up this way, in the sense that from that exchange, I don't feel like that would happen again. Now they know us. Now they also see that I'm the type of person to come knock on your door the next day. So very direct, which is what I want. I want people to know that I am the way I am, which is very direct. And I don't feel like there will be any other problems in the future. I hope. I now know all my neighbors. I now have all the characters straight, and that was pretty much the end of the story of my neighbors that called the police on me. Now it's time to move forward and put it behind me, and but I think it was still important, and I think it's important in general when these things happen to appunto confront them. It's not a part of the general way of doing things here. People tend to be very passive aggressive about these kinds of things, and I just think that kind of situation creates more doubts and creates more confusion. I don't even know what they could have been thinking about us, just like I was over here thinking that they're full-blown racist. So at least this way we are, not off on negative terms. It's where it's a fresh page and now we're trying to, coexist in our condo peacefully. And I think that's important. There were some people that were like, well, at least it wasn't in America. At least the police didn't shoot you. And I was just like, okay, I'm sorry. But the thing is, when you're Black and you have the police called on you in a situation like that, it doesn't really matter. It's still super traumatizing. All of my Italian friends that are non-white Italians that reported, having this stuff happen all through their childhood say that they're traumatized by it. So you don't actually have to get shot by the police to be traumatized by interacting with them. And so, yeah, if people could not be so trigger happy, no pun intended, to call the police on stranieri, it would be nice. And if anything, if there's anything to take away from this story of me and my neighbors, it's appunto. 1, please don't call the police. 2, say what you're thinking and be direct to your neighbors. And 3, be ready and willing to, move forward so everybody can live peacefully. So that was the resolution of, my neighbors calling the police on us. Very anticlimactic, but it is what it is. I hope I don't have any other stories like these to tell you guys, but who knows? If I do, I will. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll see you guys in my next one. Mwah.